And we are live.
We are live. Oh, the other way.
One of these days we'll get this right. But
Is
this
that-
is what you view it for.
Is that kind of centered?
Perfect.
Yeah. Okay. Hey, everyone. This is RT Bear, and I'm a 30-year comic book veteran in this wacky industry of comics. And I've worked on books like Spider-Man, X-Men, Fantastic Four, Superman, you name it. I probably have worked on it. And we are going to do our first episode of Boomin' Out Loud. You demanded it yesterday. You got it. You wanted the best. You got the best. And you got Boomin' Out Loud. As always is Taylor Grosso.
Hi, everyone. I'll be reading your chat today, so if you have any questions for Art or our guest, please chime in, join the conversation.
And our guest is probably the best guest that a guy could ever ask for. I've known this guy since I was 7 years old. 7 years old. How many of you guys have a friend that you still have? Pretty much for my whole life, I've had this guy as a friend. So without further ado, I would like to introduce, I guess it sounds weird, but my best friend in the world, Kurt Wyndham.
Hi everybody, I'm Kurt. Yes, I've known Art probably my whole life. I would say we're probably our oldest friends. There are a couple more that survived through the years, but not many.
Yes. So this episode is called Boomin' Out Loud. So it's going to be old guys talking about about stuff. We're going to try to keep it as related to comics as possible and geeky stuff. So Kurt's a big geek too, so he probably wouldn't be my friend still today if he wasn't a geek. So we met. Do you remember we met over those Aurora model kits? They had dinosaurs. Remember that?
Yes. Little plastic type dinosaurs. And I think I was like 5 years old at the time. Art was a little older than me, 5 or 6. And I remember back then we were allowed to walk down the street. And I was a few blocks away from my house, and I saw Art and someone else playing in the dirt, which obviously the best playground in the world, dirt. And I thought, wow, dinosaurs, dirt, what could be better? Hey, guys.
Okay, what we did, is we built like a La Brea tar, like the La Brea, we live in Southern California, so the La Brea tar pits is part of our reality. So when you're a young kid and you're into dinosaurs, you know all about the La Brea tar pit. And so we were making our own tar pit. I think it was in Greg's front yard. It was in his front yard, in front of what would eventually be the superhero clubhouse. Remember? Because he had the tree house.
Foreshadowing.
Yeah. So what we did is we had a hose, and we kept, like, the hose would be on slow drip, and then we just turn over the soil. We just keep loosening the soil, so it just became a mud pit. And it was pretty deep. It was maybe like 2 feet deep eventually, because we kept turning over the dirt, and we kept the water on like 24 hours a day, but on a slow drip. And so eventually so then our dinosaurs could get lost in the basically the tar pit, and then eventually it was so big that we could actually get lost in that tar pit because we would jump in it as kids as well. And so, have you ever thought about this, Kurt? Like, if somebody was to excavate like our yards, what crap they would find in the ground there? Because I'm sure there's still dinosaur pieces in that tar pit.
Oh, absolutely. I'll tell you, even in my 20s at my mom's house in the backyard, I went back there digging a few times to like lay concrete or something, and I found little army men, model leftovers, marbles, all kinds of scary stuff.
Yeah, you name it.
Now, did his parents know about the tar pit?
I don't know. I think it was a different time. Like, parents kind of looked the other way, right? At least our parents did.
Absolutely.
And just to show you what kind of parents we had, they were the greatest parents in the world. I don't want to say that, but or make it seem like they're not. But there are no photographs. Like, all I have is my school photos of me when I was a kid. Like, there's no photos of me from my parents, and there's definitely no photos of Kurt and I together when we were kids.
Yeah, because our parents weren't friends, so it was just us kids. Like, my mom basically spent her life pretty much in her house, and so we would just roam the streets as kids. And
I would say roam the streets. We owned those streets, especially when we got in our teens, right? We owned those. There was one rival, and what were they? The Wilkersons. They were up the street because it was on your street. So Kurt Street, he was on the same block that I was on, but then there was a block that's like mirrored ours. Like, you know how like it's all a grid, right? So they're all like these rectangular shapes with a bunch of houses on them. So if you went up Kurt Street, which you never went into that street at night, because those Wilkerson brothers, there was 3 of them, right? They would kill you. They would, as I used to say, they would cream your corn. They would beat you senseless, and they had. I got beat up by those guys a couple times.
We should get them on as guests.
Ooh, if they're still alive, they're probably in jail right now. Because that's really how it goes, right? Because Kurt and I, we grew up in Norwalk, and it's not a suburb of LA. What do they call that? It's LA County. Right, so
right.
LA County School District and everything like that. So we were probably 20 minutes, half hour from LA proper if there was no traffic,
Right.
and
Which never happens.
Which never happens here. So it's an hour drive. So excuse me. So yeah, so it wasn't a great place to live. It may as
But
well.
we didn't know that. It was like paradise for me. I loved it growing
Except
up.
for the Wilkersons beating you up.
Yeah.
That was part of the charm.
there was a neighborhood called the One Ways. It was a Hispanic neighborhood, and you just didn't go in. Period. Night, day, whatever. Right? Because
Oh yeah, gunshots every night. It was one of those neighborhoods.
yeah. So
those are the streets that they call them one ways because it's basically they end. It's like a cul-de-sac that ends.
No,
right?
no, it was like a couple blocks, and the streets were so narrow, they'd have cars parked on one side, and you can only drive one direction. So they're actually a one-way streets, but it was a housing tract.
yeah, so you could only drive in one direction. So it was it's a one-way street basically.
So if someone blocked you halfway through, it'd be easy to block you behind you, and you'd be done.
Ooh.
Yeah, and then they would shoot you.
Oh, the joys of LA childhood.
Yeah, I've been beat up there a few times.
Yeah, my sister eventually bought a house in that area, so that was pretty crazy. But we're not talking about
No, let's go back to childhood when we had the superheroes in our brain.
Yeah, we had crazy superheroes in our brain. So what we did is we read comic books as kids, and this is Kurt is a video game geek. So what? Okay, we started off as like the comic book cartoon geek, and then we forked off. So Kurt went video games, and I went more into comic books. But there was a time where we were simpatico. we were in line with the comic books and the superhero stuff. So we had created with I think my brother was a part-timer, but there was Greg, and was there anybody else, or was it just the 3 of us?
There's 3 of us.
Okay, so there were 3 of us, and we called it the Superhero Club. Yeah, it was a club. And so there was dues paid. There was no dues paid. It was just 3 like-minded kids that, everybody else would probably beat us up if they knew we did these things. And so
You had to meet in secret.
yeah, it's just like superheroes. Ooh. So we built ourselves a killer clubhouse.
In a tree.
We had multiple. Did it start with the one in my yard, though, at first? Do you remember that one?
No, I think Greg's was first.
Okay, that was first. So we had the obstacle course. The training ground was in my yard.
Ninja Warrior.
Yeah, so I think it started off as the superhero club training ground. So it was like the danger room, and then it went to the Bionic Man training ground because the Bionic Man came on the air. And
TV series was out. It was strong, and then Greg had the Bionic Man doll where you could look through the back of his head and it would zoom in on his eye.
Yeah, it was a hole in the back of the character's head, right? The doll had a hole in it was like a weird gunshot victim. Like if you look through the viewfinder in the back of the doll's head, I guess we should call them action figures, but if you look, then did it have like some kind of
a sight or something?
Yeah, but it was like a magnifying glass or something, right? Yeah, so it looked closer than it was. Yeah,
and it had a bullseye in there.
Yeah, I always thought that was kind of weird though.
Yeah.
My uncle had one of those. I used to always look through the back of it.
Yeah.
But our treehouse was very professionally built, and engineers of like 6 and 7-year-olds. We found proper building materials in front of people's yards, maybe the side of their house, possibly even in their backyard that they didn't know was missing.
There might have been some thievery involved in the raw materials to build the superhero clubhouse. Yes.
We had a rope ladder to get in there.
My dad built that with me.
Aww.
So that was
the rope ladder.
Oh yeah, that was a killer rope ladder.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay, that was professional.
Yeah, that was professional. Because my dad was in the military, so he knew like knots and stuff.
Oh,
he was in the he also was he worked at a marine at the naval shipyard. Yeah, so he knew nautical knots and things like that. So it was a legit rope ladder where the rungs were tied in, like knotted into the rope. Yeah.
So your dad condoned he condoned the club at least.
As long as it was in Greg's parents' yard.
Yeah, as long as it wasn't at his house. Is this going to be in my yard? Nope. Here you go.
But just for the record, each one of us had a clubhouse in our yard. And I never really thought about that until now. Yeah. So, yeah, it started in my yard. Then that became the superhero training ground. And then we built a tree house in Greg's tree. And so, but before we had the rope ladder, we would just like lift each other up.
Right.
Yeah, into the tree.
And in Art's missing the best part. Well, there's two great parts of the tree house. It was actually multi-level.
It was two-story,
in there. And then we had this one sheet that was probably a 4 by 3 foot piece of plywood that Art painted a shield, a U.S. shield, basically American shield with Justice League painted across it.
Oh yeah, it was authentic. It was like the Justice League shield from the comics. Yeah,
And that was facing the street, of course, so everyone gets to tell that.
Oh yeah, we announced it to the world. Yeah, and the best part about that big piece of wood is we just found a big piece of paneling, and so that was just a wall. So I think we pushed it into the tree.
Right.
It was never nailed to anything.
Oh man!
So I just remember one time we leaned against that board and we fell out of the treehouse. Like
how high up?
It was maybe 5 feet.
Yeah, about 5 feet.
The first floor. Yeah.
You know, and since we were under 5 foot, that's a long drop.
Yeah. So the way we would get in, I think we boost each other up in that. You know how you make that little boost with your hand, or that little. What do you call that? There's a name for it.
You lock your fingers together.
Yeah, you lock your fingers together, and
there is a term, but I forget.
Yeah,
what
you
it's
can
called.
boost your friends up, and then the last one, then you'd grab their arms and kind of pull them up.
Something you can only do when you're like a little kid.
Yeah, and do you remember we tried to expand the superhero club, and there was a guy named Glenn Griesby. I'm not even making that up, Glenn. If you're listening to this, props. But man. Because we had a hatch. It's the way, and also we had a lock on that latch. Hatch.
Right.
Remember?
Right.
We had a bicycle lock, so no one could get in to the treehouse. And so I remember trying to get Glenn. He was a little bigger than we were, and we tried to get him up in the treehouse in the usual fashion. But the cool thing is we already had one person up in the treehouse, and then we had one below. So we were doing I guess it was kind of like the
stirrups, says the chat.
Yeah, stirrups. Yeah, and so we did the whole. It was like Pooh Bear stuck. Yeah, but it was like Pooh Bear stuck in. And so I remember. I think I was on the bottom, so I was pushing him up with the stirrup move, and then one of you guys were up there with the arm, and you're pulling him, and then he just wedged. He wedged Pooh Bear style, and so I just remember he wasn't quite as tough as we were.
Aww.
And so I just remember him kind of he was like screaming and crying because that's crazy. That's crazy. We need a sound effect board.
We need a soundboard.
Taylor and I talk about that all the time. So his arms were caught underneath, and it's raw wood. So he's constantly being pulled and then dropped down, pulled and dropped down, and we were ripping skin underneath his arms. So he's just screaming, and so by this time he's wedged. Like we can't get him up and we can't get him down. He's literally stuck. So I just remember at that point we're just like we got to get him out of here. And so I guess
we left, and we figured he'd find his own way.
No, I don't know what you guys did, but I could just imagine you guys were probably used your feet and were pushing down on his shoulders.
People in the chat want to know if this treehouse is in the front yard or the backyard.
Oh, that's the best part. Go ahead, Kurt.
It was in the front yard. It was kind of the house was a weird design. It was on a corner, so that basically it was right next to the left side of the front door.
It was like a front
If you're on
backyard.
the sidewalk, you could basically walk 2 feet into their yard and touch the tree.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah, so it was not quite hidden. And in those days, Norwalk, not everybody had fences.
Right, and they
Yeah.
didn't have one actually.
They had a back fence, but they didn't have a front fence.
So what you're seeing here, this isn't the actual treehouse.
Because we didn't have cameras. We were,
Yeah.
we didn't have that kind of money.
Yeah, we didn't have technology. And ours was better than this, by the way.
But we just found some examples of a kid-made forts.
This is probably about the timeline that we built ours, though.
And you would not believe how difficult, you guys, it is to find, like, pictures of forts that are actually made by kids and are just, like, pre-built by either an adult or a company.
Yeah, these kids were these are like panels from
That
like a
probably
wall.
looked closer to the one in my backyard that was actually on the ground.
Yeah.
And the basic design of our forts is build the wall strong enough to take a big heavy brick or a rock, because that's what we were going to try and break into it.
Yeah, there was some warfare. There were some battles royale.
So, so Glenn, what ended up happening to him?
So I think they probably used brute force to force him back down the hole, and so I think little boys can be pretty cruel. I think we just like go home, like because he was crying and stuff. Because we still wanted to play. Like, what were we gonna do? Coddle him? Like,
Right. There's no coddling.
Yeah, we had to go up in the clubhouse and read our books. So, so that's what these things were. These were like hideaways so we could read our comics and then plan on how we were gonna save the universe.
And we even had a secret safe that we hid into the wall.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
What?
That's where we stash our comics and our different like prized possessions. Yeah, because we
Like
also
pocket knives and stuff, you know.
Yeah, my dad actually. It was a big thing. I don't know if dads do this anymore, but dads in the 60s, 70s, they gave their kids pocket knives. Yeah,
Right.
I had a pocket knife. Yeah, I carried it to school and
Buck
everything.
knives and big knives even.
Yeah, actually, I did have it was like a bone handled knife, and it was maybe a 3-inch, 4-inch blade.
Yeah,
I never
probably,
thought
yeah.
about that.
Yeah.
It was kind of like one of those
We called
those
them
skinny knives.
We called them
I forgot about
toys
that.
back then.
Yeah, well, we used to throw them into the walls and stuff. Like, it was cool, right? Because you'd sit in the clubhouse and you could just like throw the knives, like you'd spin them around and they stab into the ground, into the walls and stuff. Yeah, I forgot about that because I know I had a fold-up knife.
Yeah.
But I didn't carry it around with me, but I actually had it. I don't think it was a real bone handle, but it looked like a bone handle, and I think it was like a skinny knife. What we would skin like a
hunter's knife.
Yeah, a hunter's knife. Yeah, or
Back
like fish, like you'd gut a fish with.
Back when responsibility was taught, said the chat. That is an old school thing because my grandpa gave me my first knife when I was probably like 9 or 8.
Yeah, you guys, Taylor is the coolest woman you'll ever meet in your life, man. She has done. I mean, okay, we're making this all about us. Taylor has built clubhouses and destroyed others' clubhouses.
I was a little tomboy, so I know about the knife thing. I didn't have a cool place to throw it though, because I would have gotten in major trouble.
Yeah, she came decades later. So I think you were more like the hover parents.
Oh, definitely.
Were
yeah.
coming into play, but our parents were definitely not the helicopter parents. Yeah. They were like, this is how it would be. It would be as long as you're back, okay, your homework's done, and as long as you're back by 5, right? It was usually before dinner, right?
Well, not my house. I had no curfew.
Yeah, but you had to be home, or at least we had to be out of your house by the time
we had to be. My house, my mom was cool as long as nothing was done inside the house that was going to damage anything. I could be out after night at Arts or Greg's or just, on the neighborhood, and she was good with it, but... Yeah, as long as it, and I was cool to have friends over, as long as they weren't there when my mom got home, because we were basically, I didn't have a dad, so we just had mom, and so when she got home, she wanted silence. So we took that as a literal rule, and if people were still at the house when she drove up in the driveway, they would charge out the back door, jump over the fences into the neighbor's yard and out the other.
We ran like rats. Like we were so scared of Kurt's mom. Like
she had never done anything.
Yeah,
to these guys.
it was just she had a reputation because I think you scared the crap out of us. Like when my mom comes home, none of you guys can be here. So like, and we couldn't leave out the front because she would pull up in the driveway. So we all had to like jump into other neighbors' yards and just like leap fences.
Into the night.
Yeah, we just like, every man for himself. Like we would just like, because I think Paul Milroy lived behind you, so I became pretty intimate with Paul and his family because they would just like, oh, okay, it's 6 o'clock. Kurt's friends have to leave his house.
So the first thing you want to do is make friends with all the neighbors' dogs, so when you're hopping the fence, you're safe.
Bring a scrap of meat or some sausages or something.
Back when parents had you had to respect them. Like your friends' parents had a reputation.
There was some fear. Yeah, there was some fear. So we also had the obstacle course, which was the training ground, but we also had super suits.
What?
Oh yeah.
Yes, we did. Art always being creative, not just in drawing, but in everything. He would, I don't know if you saw it on Bozo the Clown or where he saw these things, but he would take these like plastic trash bags.
Where the hell did that come from?
And he would cut them up and he would mold it and he'd staple it and then he would paint them so you'd have Captain America helmets, Spider-Man helmets.
Hey, you know what? I might have an example. Hey, Taylor, can you check? I think I might have a photo of my kid.
Oh, that's right. Let me see.
Is it in there?
Yes.
Oh, this is perfect. I'll hold it up for you guys. Thanks, Taylor.
This is an adorable picture as
Okay.
well.
By the way, this was like a really quick version, but ours were a lot better. So this is my kid. This is Amanda when she was little, and so this was probably on par with what we look like. But I think they had a top on them too, right?
Yeah, ours covered the top, and I remember getting stabbed and staples getting stuck into my head.
And then they were fully painted and everything. So I think they had the top of the head on them.
It was all rounded at the top. He actually cut it around and stapled to make it round. And get this is scary. We walked around outside dressed up like this.
Well, because I think we were looking for a fight because like we wanted to do good. Like we were altruistic kids, so we legitimately believed those stories.
Let's go rescue someone.
Yeah. And then also, do you guys? Well, I think you grew up on them too, Taylor. Where like a lot of the Disney stories and like Goonies and things that came out later. But Disney's films did this too, where like kids would go out adventuring, and then they would find like a dead body, or they would find some kind of mystery.
Every kid wanted it, like to stumble upon a big adventure.
Yeah, so I think part of it was like we wanted to find a big adventure, but also we wanted to maybe if there was a crime that we would somehow crime bust. We would stop the crime from happening.
So and again, so we had a house that was several blocks away from where we lived, and it probably was on like an acre or two.
Yeah. Oh, cool. This is a great story.
Huge 2-story house. So lots of trees and plants around it. So obviously it had to be haunted. So
yeah, we created a story that it was haunted.
We assumed it was haunted and there was dead people or people getting murdered in there, and we were going to be spying on them. So we would dress up and jump around the bushes trying to get in and peek through the windows.
Yeah, I think part of it was a little superhero club, but part of it was just like adventuring guys. So sometimes we didn't have the suits on. Sometimes we didn't have the super suits on.
Now the real question is, were the suits designed after like superheroes already made, or did you guys have your own characters?
We weren't that clever. We were Justice League characters. I think we were mostly DC characters actually, because we had Hawkman. You were always like, because Kurt's really angular, and I think you had the marksman. You had like the whole bow and arrow thing.
Green Arrow, right?
Yeah, you were Green Arrow. And then I think I was always Cap or the Flash. No, yeah, we did have Cap. So we did have a Spider-Man, and we did have a Captain America as well. So the Captain America shield. Okay, we had a Thor hammer and we had a Cap shield.
Right.
The Cap shield. I don't know how I cut this thing out. It was 3-ply. Paneling, plywood, and so that thing was heavy,
and it was cut it round. It was round
as I could with a saber saw or whatever. No, a jigsaw. It was a jigsaw. Oh my gosh,
that would take forever.
As a kid, like my dad was a woodworker, So we had access to power
probably
tools.
like, what,
Oh my
15,
gosh.
20, 15 pounds or so at least?
I don't know.
And
I'm
we-
just thinking back how crazy it was that we had power tools. And you guys, I don't know if you guys either worked with power tools when you were kids or had your parents, but my dad showed me how to cut a hole right in the middle of paneling with a jigsaw.
How
And you-
old were you?
God, we were probably 8, 9, right?
Yeah.
Maybe 10. And so
Craftsman age.
yeah, so if you there's those little forks, those little skis that are at the front of it. If you put that down in the wood and then you turn it on, if you angle it slowly, it will actually cut. It'll like drill a hole into solid paneling. So you don't have to like cut into it and then around it. You can just start wherever you want. And I
Right,
think I
right.
did that for that shield. I remember because it was bouncing as I was trying to do the hole. But I did it. And then I cut that circle as well as I could, and then we painted it up
Right.
with the red, white, and blue.
Let's put some straps on it.
Yeah, and then
Not
we
the straps.
nailed some straps onto it.
That's
and
legit.
then I think we all traded off heroes too. We weren't always the same
Yeah,
heroes.
and the Thor hammer was like a real hammer, almost like a mallet.
it was a
Oh.
rubber mallet.
Yeah, right. And so it was pretty big. And of course, you have to test these things out. So we have to have a guinea pig, and we would throw this stuff at each other.
Oh, I don't think we were doing it like, oh, a guinea pig. I think we actually battled. So like what do kids do? They just fight. So I don't think when we weren't out looking for an adventure to help somebody, I think we were just beating each other up in
For the most part, yeah.
superhero style. So we had legit weapons. So you had a bow and arrow. It was a working bow.
Oh, gosh.
It wasn't like anything that you could probably impale somebody, or they weren't sharp, right?
Unless I took out their eye, that would be about it.
They were probably some kind of kid bow and
I
arrow.
was the one that was going to be in trouble with the bow and arrow because, you know, a 15, 20-pound piece of wood thrown at me, I'm done. And also with a 5, 6-pound mallet.
I just remember one of us was running from the shield because we were going to throw it, but you couldn't really throw it. It was heavy.
It was heavy.
So
It wouldn't go far.
Yeah, it wasn't like a frisbee. So I remember one of us threw it at the other, and then it clipped the Achilles heel. Yeah, the back of the
Ooh.
ankle, and it was like it took him down.
Oh,
He was like,
man.
ah! And then so of course we're like, walk it off, you wimp. And so we're like, and then we looked at it. It was like it was pretty jacked up. And then yeah, we threw the rubber mallet at each other, and hopefully the shield would block it,
Right.
but it didn't always. So sometimes we would take a rubber mallet to the head.
Ray Thulu says this is I 100% agree with this. He said, "Yeah, kids LARP before anybody knows what that is."
Oh yeah, this was early LARPing, and so I just remember we were hanging out at the superhero club, and I don't know. Okay, this is we're older, and this is probably isn't very PC, but it was the some girls sit like this. Do you remember that joke?
Right, right.
Oh yeah, I
Some
remember
girls
too.
that sit like
that.
this get
Girls
this,
who sit like
like
this,
this,
get this like that.
like that. And so as soon as it was Greg doing the joke, and as soon as Greg opened his legs, because that was like the joke, I threw the Thor hammer right at his crotch.
I remember that.
He never did that joke again.
Get this like ah.
Ah!
Oh.
So Greg was the girl in that scenario.
At least afterwards he was.
We definitely made him our biatch multiple times.
Most of the time. And he did it to himself a lot of times too.
Yeah, he was kind of a jerk.
I remember him pulling something out of a upper cabinet once, and he grabbed something, and the iron came out right on his face.
Okay, so
Then he got yelled at by his mom, of course.
yeah, and I think too. I don't know what you did with your costume, but I hid it. You know, you had to do like the Rorschach hidden panel in your closet
Secret
thing.
identity.
Yeah, because you had to hide your secret identity. I don't know who we were hiding it from, but I don't know. Did you? I know I hid my suit, my super suit.
Well, I had like the coolest place to live because my house was like really small neighborhood. I had an older sister, so mom had a room, my sister had a room, and then where they're going to put the boy, right? So basically, just a single car garage. They just gave me the garage for a bedroom, and it had the washer and dryer in there. But you know, for the most part, I just had the coolest bedroom.
Yeah, and Kurt was a model maker, and so was I. So it was those days were cool. And then also you had, I know we're getting off the subject a little bit, but of course they were like the superhero, the Aurora model kits. So we put those together, and then they had the horror model kits. Do you remember those too?
The Frankenstein. The
Yeah,
werewolf,
yeah, and then later they had glow in the dark pieces.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
The dinosaur model kits you guys are talking about, were those the ones that also had the wind up where their legs would move?
No, they were just.
Or are those later?
I think those were the Aurora kits too, and they were kind of like, I think they were trying to be as accurate as they could. So I think they were kind of educational, right? Because they go, this is Cro-Magnon, man, and this is whatever, Triceratops, and then they would have the scientific name and stuff like that. But they were model kits, but they may have moved. I think they had joints that moved.
Right.
Maybe.
Well, they did. They have joints that moved, but you had to manually move them.
Yeah, but I don't think they were. Yeah, they were wind ups. Yeah.
I mostly remember the horror ones like the Wolfman and stuff too. I think you can still find those in like collectible
hobby shops.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they still re-release them. They might be called something Nights.
They're really cool though.
Yeah, and I think they're the same molds. Yeah, so those things have stayed in print probably for 50 years.
And as kids, we used to we would get money back then, like collecting bottles, because it was like soda only came in glass bottles. It was not recyclable, reusable basically, and you got 10 cents. So we would collect stuff like that. We'd go to the supermarket down the street, and Greg and Art would basically get money from whatever else and they would buy comic books. And we'd basically go to the grocery store, like a small grocery store, and we'd look at all the comic books. And
what was it? It was called George's Market, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, not a lot of shops carried comic books. And George's Market, it was a liquor store. It was a liquor store. We hung out in a...
No, it was a full market. They had a meat...
it was a full market. Do you remember where the comic books were, though?
Right at the entry. Right where the
in
alcohol.
The liquor part. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, by the girly magazines and... and guns and ammo.
Had to be together, right?
Yeah. Chewing tobacco,
back
comic
when you
books.
could actually... when kids could actually find comics readily available.
But you got to understand, they were very politically correct, and they were being adults, because the porn was on a shelf at the wall, and away from the wall they had the racks that would spin around with the comic books, so they kept you away from them.
Yeah, the spinner rack was kind of away from it, but kind of not. We definitely would explore some of the stuff we weren't supposed to. And I think I got my hands on some chewing tobacco at one time. And some cigarettes, maybe. I don't know, maybe.
And then for a while there, 7-Eleven had superhero cups. So the big plastic cups that were reusable for a little bit, because it wasn't great plastic, they would have all the superhero images on them, and of course they were collectibles. And we would probably walk 3 miles, because it was
bicycle
in
or walk.
It was in Bellflower.
Yeah, well, Bellflower had that park too, right? So we drink our Slurpees there.
So it was probably a 3-mile walk, and we'd walk there most of the time during the summer.
Yeah, in the summertime. And so the thing is, we wanted multiple cups to make it worth our while. And so you could just buy the cup, but we couldn't justify it. So we'd usually have 3 cups filled with Slurpees. Yes. So then we would go to the park and get crazy brain freeze, man. Oh my gosh, the headaches. Yeah, so we'd slurp on those, and then we'd have enough energy to get home. And so the superhero cups were part of... the treehouse. So we had those things. Those were our decorative items, and they probably ended up in the safe at the end of the day, right?
Right.
Yeah, because those were our rare collectibles. When my parents passed away a couple years ago, they still had all those.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It was like a ream of them. There was probably like 30 or 40 cups, right? Yeah, they still had them.
Wow.
So I don't know if you guys remember, Slurpee I don't know if they still do it. They do collectible cups.
I think they still do. I think they did one for that Deadpool movie.
Did they?
I think about it.
Yeah.
Nothing survived my childhood. Nothing's Tonka toys. I was like 4 or 5 years old, and Tonka toys were like solid metal, like car metal, and they would get destroyed by me.
Everything in Kurt's yard was also the
flame.
Yeah, we burned things.
Oh,
in Kurt's
everything. Everything. Poor models. Art had his models. He'd make them. They'd go up on a shelf. Mine were toys. I'd make them, and they'd go out in the backyard. And sooner or later, you get bored of it, and it would end up getting torched.
The engine's on fire. Oh dear, what are we gonna do? And then just pour more gasoline on it.
Gasoline was my friend.
Yeah. Well, okay, we're gonna get back into the comic talk, but there was one time where I think you guys had a boat or something. You had a thing of water, like a big tub of water.
Sorry, the chat says Kurt's parents sound cool.
Yeah, unless you
My
cross.
mom's amazing, actually.
Just yeah, his mom. Yeah, so
Okay, well, real quick before we get back to the other stuff, I lit my backyard on fire.
I was going to tell the story. Yeah.
It was probably a 4,000 square foot. I mean, it was. I rode a motorcycle in the backyard. It was pretty good size back there. The house was tiny, but the yard was big. I dumped probably 2 or 3 gallons of gas that caught on fire and just covered the backyard. And so me and Greg were there. So immediately, as little kids, we grabbed the water hose and then we started spraying. We noticed, oh, that's stupid. It's spreading now because gas floats on water, so we're just making it bigger. So Greg wants to go get the fireman or call someone for help. I'm like, I'm not getting in trouble for nothing. Just get a shovel. We're going to put dirt on this thing. We're going to put it out. Well, let me say, we got it out. We didn't burn anything down. And my mom went back
except
there.
the model.
Yeah, we ran out. The gas can was destroyed, but my mom comes back there later and she goes, "Wow, the grass looks all burnt. I wonder what happened back here." And the dirt was like hard, crusty dirt because of all the heat and the flame.
You melted the dirt.
And I'm like, "Yeah, it must have been a really hot summer or something." And she goes, "Oh, okay." She bought it. I'm like, "Woo, I survived."
Yeah. And so we had the tree house, we had the clubhouse, and yeah, what?
And the obstacle course where Art almost killed me.
You killed yourself. This was the Bionic Man obstacle course, I think, wasn't it, or was it still the Superhero Club? Okay, yeah, because then we could do the sound like, and we'd run in slow motion and in fast motion. Yeah. So go ahead, tell him how you almost killed yourself.
So, anyways. Art grabs me by the ankles and no.
I did not.
I was always kind of tiny and stuff, but what we would do is you'd run around this course and time ourselves. And of course, at one point, we're running across a wooden picnic table and we're jumping off over a white picket fence that's probably 2.5, 3 feet in the air. And about the same height as the table, maybe. So about 2.5
feet. The table's a little higher than, just a little bit though.
So what we would do is pull the table back further and further.
Yeah, because the thing was that each time we had to change the obstacle course to challenge ourselves. So yeah, you're right. So we kept moving away from the picket fence. So you had to leap. The idea was you had to run up onto the tabletop, run across the tabletop, and then over the picket fence. So go ahead. Yeah.
So as you leap over the fence, at one point, picnic table, the legs are maybe foot in. So thinking I'm not going to be able to make the distance, so I'm running to the edge of the table this time. So as I get to the edge to leap, the table flips up.
Like a diving board, it kind of dipped.
Right.
Yeah.
Ray says, I wonder how this story will end.
It ends horribly.
I'm still here. So the odd thing about it, instead of falling face down into the picket fence, my legs went in front of me, and so I'm flying over this fence, legs straight forward towards the house backwards.
Okay, I'm going to illustrate it with this pin. Okay, here's Kurt leaping, and then he does this.
Yeah, and there's no way that could have happened, but it did. And
it did because the bottom of the tabletop gave way. So when it gave way, you went this way.
And so oddly enough, my neck is perfect size to fit between 2 of the picket fence boards. Then they were pointed picket fence.
They were pointed, yeah.
And Art, and of course I don't remember anything after this. I just remember 2 pieces of wood going between my neck. And then Art remembers my feet almost like a...
Okay, when he came down on the fence, here's the pin again. The pin is Kurt. When he came down, let's just say his head's here. It went between the picket fence, and his body stayed in this shape for just a second. He went like this, and then it just went limp.
Head stuck between the planks.
Yeah, and his head was stuck on the planks, and then his body just went limp, and he was just hanging there from his neck. We thought you were dead, man.
So I can imagine the first thing through his head is, Oh, we lost a friend. We need another person to be a friend now.
We need a green arrow.
How are we getting rid of the body?
Yeah, well, that would have been the easy part. We had shovels everywhere.
Shovels and holes. So they picked me up and I survived somehow. And
Yeah, I think we had to kind of pick you up off of the...
over the fence, I was hanging.
Yeah, because you were hanging, your head was stuck, your neck was stuck. I don't know, somebody was looking out for you. You had a guardian angel that day, because could you imagine if you kind of hit that...
One way or the other?
Yeah, that point in the back of your head or something.
Yeah, actually,
or your neck.
Going between the planks is probably the best that could have happened.
Right.
Yeah.
Falling on that thing.
Or just like you could have like did some major spinal damage.
Right.
Like just pull your spine.
It
Broken
could have
your
to my
neck.
chest.
Yeah,
if I
your
didn't go
head.
far enough. Yeah, because if I didn't make it up to my neck, it would have went into my back.
I know.
Two of them would have.
Believe me, I thought of every angle of how you could have died that day.
So was that the end of the obstacle course?
Oh hell
or-
no!
No.
We just moved the table back a little bit further and kept
And
going.
we kept doing it. But we did learn that you can't run past where the footing is on the table because
Yeah.
it will flip forward.
Either that or we probably propped it up so it wouldn't kind of go this way. It wouldn't go up. Yeah. And so I think one of the obstacle thing, because we always had lemons and oranges, because we had a lemon and orange tree in the backyard, and they would fall from the ground and they would get kind of soft and kind of raunchy. And so remember the obstacle course, we would throw those at each other. So so while you were doing so as an added challenge, you had to dodge the like rancid fruit being thrown at you. I remember one guy, I think we were trying to initiate, this was a new guy, his name was Ted Heath, and I think he was running by the fence, or by the wall, and one of us threw one of these, and these fruit, they got huge, they weren't like normal orange sizes, they got big, and we threw one at him, and it hit him in the shoulder, and it just like, it exploded on his shoulder, and then it knocked him over against the wall, and then there was a little like spray, like arterial spray up on the wall, so it looked so cool. It was like, oh man, we just blew his shoulder out. We got him. And he's like, hey man, that sucks, man, you ruined my shirt. Yeah. So we had the superhero club. And then we had the clubhouse fort. We should tell them the fort, so the fort was originally at my house. My dad got sick of the fort. I think my dad made me tear down the fort when he found out there were underground tunnels. We had underground tunnels that led outside of the fort and into the fort. And I think he was in the backyard one day, and one of the tunnels collapsed.
Oh,
And he was
man.
fearful that one of us would maybe die. We would suffocate if it collapsed.
How deep were the tunnels?
They weren't deep enough to suffocate it. They were like maybe a foot or two underground. Yeah, because some of them also we dug a trench and then we put a board over it and then we backfilled it with dirt, so it looked so he couldn't tell there were tunnels. But anyways, I think
it was cool for a kid because you felt you were in a tunnel regardless.
Yeah, I mean it was probably narrow enough to actually, for a small kid to get through. And then I just remember we were digging over. This is the part, he didn't know about this, but he was right to stop us from digging. Because we were over by that gas main. Do you remember?
Ooh.
Like the gas meter and the gas main were right there. And I remember whacking that thing a couple times with the shovel.
Unless he did know, he just didn't let on.
The part where it collapsed was away from the gas meter.
Yeah, our experience were kind of normal. Is that his dad actually, took care of the backyard, and so he was out there once in a while.
He was out there once in a while, but I think our backyard at that time was as wild
Right.
as your backyard, Kurt.
But there's one hole I dug to do stuff in that ended up being a barbecue pit for my mom.
So she used your ideas, yeah. That's cool.
But other than that, it was pretty much our backyard.
Yeah, so then we moved it from my house, and some of that wood and that stuff ended up becoming the superhero club over in Greg's tree. And so then then Greg's parents got sick of that, because I think what happened at Greg's house, since he didn't have the fence, kids at the high school, because it was right there, and they would ditch school, yeah, and then they would go smoke dope up in our clubhouse.
Right.
Yeah.
If you're a high school, obviously you could reach it. They could climb right in.
Yeah, they would climb right in.
In fact, I think Louie was the one that stole our stuff out of our hidden safe.
Yeah, okay, we got robbed one night and they stole my
No.
dad's rope ladder. And then these guys were arrogant enough to have it hanging from their tree. That was the Wilkersons. That was
Oh,
the
was it
Wilkersons.
Wilkersons? Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
they had the tree, the rope. So we had to wait at night. We had to somehow go down the street and we stole the rope ladder back. But we could never use it again because if we hung it at the the
They'd
tree house,
know.
they would know. Yeah. So I think I just hid that somewhere. But I couldn't stand the thought of my dad building this thing and then having somebody else use it.
Yeah, they
so
don't deserve it.
I wish they still had that thing. It was awesome.
You understand that the fact that you want to get these kids back, but you're not tough enough to be able to deal with it if they found out.
Right, because we're still kids and
Yeah.
they're high school kids. Yeah.
We were in elementary school, really
Yeah.
low
What-
elementary school. when
What
they were high
jerks
school.
too? They're high schoolers and they're like picking on elementary school kids.
Oh, all
Right.
the time.
Well, could you imagine Greg's parents too? Because his dad would go to work, so his mom was left
Right.
at the house. So she'd go out there and hear people talking in the
Oh,
treehouse
man.
and smoking dope and stuff. She was
Yeah.
probably scared to death.
That actually is there. That is a scary
I mean,
implication.
it hurt us because they had to tear down the treehouse. But I mean, if you think about it as an adult now, that was probably pretty scary for
Yeah,
her.
I wouldn't want them in there.
Yeah, so we used the wood, and then we brought what was left over to Kurt's yard. And so, Kurt, tell that story.
Unfortunately, the trees at my house, I mean, probably the lowest branch would be like 2 stories high. They were huge trees. They went up into the power lines and stuff. So it was basically became a ground fort again. So
Did we prop it up
Up
against
to
the
the
tree?
middle
Yeah,
tree,
so we
right.
used a tree as a support. Yeah,
right.
that was our structure.
And so on the other hand, kind of like a grandfather of mine built a nice, really professional, like a clubhouse for my sister and her
Oh.
and my cousin.
I
And-
hated your sister.
Yeah. But we found out that ours is tougher because when we throwing bricks and rocks at both of them, theirs caved in before ours did.
Okay, we had a battle like kids do. You know, you build your fort, so then you have a battle.
Yeah, see how strong it lasts.
Yeah. So I don't. Was your sister even involved in the
No,
battle?
she wasn't even home.
We just battled when she was gone, and so I don't. Was it called particle board?
Yeah, it was particle board.
Yeah. So her fort was made out of particle board, but it was all structured like a real house. Ours would look like the one that you're looking at right now.
So cosmetically, hers looked
Oh, fantastic.
great.
And it had 2x4s. It had actual structure. Ours was built like this, like just a bunch
Kind
of
of.
boards just nailed together. Yeah, 'cause-
Again, the difference between a kid built fort versus an adult built fort for
right,
a
right.
kid.
So I think we were just so jealous that she had the cool fort.
And my sister could be a pest.
Well, I always thought she was cool, but you had to live with her
Right.
24/7. Yeah. So yeah, so I think it probably mostly came from jealousy, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
So I think we just got in our crazy heads like whose fort could win, right?
Right?
Yeah. So I think we took a brick and then we throw it at hers, right?
Right.
And then we
exactly.
take that same brick and then we throw it at ours. And then I think it was more like
You can
who-
prove that yours is better still.
yeah,
Absolutely.
it was kind of a scientific experiment if you think about it. Structurally, whose is stronger?
How could you develop and build something better? You're learning as a child how to be an engineer, right?
Yeah.
You have to figure it out.
Yeah. And all I knew, Taylor, is that
Oh, people are talking about their in the chat. I think a lot of people relate to having childhood death traps and
Yes.
Oh,
and
yeah.
childhood dangerous wars. So people
Oh,
are
yeah.
swapping stories.
So the best part of this story, do you remember this, Kurt? Is that particle board offered no resistance to the brick.
None.
That
Plywood
brick,
is much better.
yeah, plywood. Like this fort right here can actually take a brick better than a particle board structured clubhouse because man, those bricks. I think maybe it hit once, but then if you hit around the same spot, that brick went right through. And yeah, when she got home, she probably was a little amazed at what we did to her.
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
So I'm reading the chat on my phone right now, and Sketch Therapy said, "Okay, let's be real. Would you guys let your kids or grandkids play in forts with underground tunnels?"
Well, I probably would, but I would want to verify myself that the tunnel was structured properly. If it was reinforced, I probably would.
Okay, knowing how big of a kid I am, and obviously I draw comic books for a living, so I'm very kid-like. I probably would have went out there and built it with my daughter.
Right.
Aw.
Yeah, because my daughter did have like limited. She had tree like type forts, but they were like maybe a board or two, and then she tied up the hose. Like I had an old hose, and I think it's still in the yard actually. She had a hose swing, and that doubled for the way to get up to the main part of the tree. And then there was a tree that kind of was it was a mirror of the other tree, and it just sat across from the yard, maybe 15 feet from the other. And so then she had a Tarzan line that went across that one to the other tree.
Whoa.
Yeah. So she had a tree that she could swing to the other tree with. So, and then she had we called it the jungle climber. So it was like one of those Toys R Us plastic ones, and it had like, it was like a little fort where it had like hidden doors that
Those are
spun.
cool.
It had a net that you could climb. It looked like rocks, and it had like fossils built. It was all plastic, so it had like fossils and stuff. So she had that. So she went on adventures with the dog. But also what was cool about where we live now, where Amanda grew up versus where Kurt and I grew up. Kurt and I grew up in the concrete jungle. Like it was just a suburb. There was no real open areas. But here we have a big hill. Like we have the Cleveland National Forest behind the house here. So Amanda went out there, and I think she did build a legit clubhouse. And one of our neighbors still talk about this. Somehow they found a hood of a car.
What?
Did you ever hear this story? Yeah. So a friend of ours still tells this story, that she remembers seeing Amanda with some of her friends dragging out of the car, like past their house and up the hill.
Right.
Yeah. So, oh, you know what? We should use this as an opportunity. Taylor needs to tell her clubhouse. Well, did you build it or did you just demolish it?
The more common story I tell is demolishing it, because we where I grew up there's my grandparents, where I used to like stay a lot, is where I had all my friends in the neighborhood, and my grandpa was really he's really big into his yard and yard work, so there's no way he'd ever let me build anything there ever. So there was kind of like a vacant field that was probably like a mile or so walk from like my friend's house, and some boys built like a pretty cool legit clubhouse there, but we could only ever go in whenever they weren't there. And one day, I don't know what it was, I think we were like starting to get a little too old to like play in a clubhouse, but we went there, and I don't know what it was.
There's an age limit?
If it was just like young teenage girl rage starting to brew inside of us, we walked up to it, and then just without saying anything, like a hive mind, we destroyed the entire clubhouse.
How many girls were with you?
There's only 2 of us. Like, I remember my one friend Lauren, who was also like a little tomboy, was on her own a lot. Like, I remember, like, she did the first blow, because I remember literally, like, jumping and, like, ninja kicking down the door and, like, knocking it over. And we were, like, we started, like, systematically destroying the entire thing. And it had a window.
So you guys tore it apart with your bare hands?
Yeah, we were, like, kicking it.
Oh, my God.
And then we used pieces of the clubhouse to hit the clubhouse. And then I remember, like, we were destroying it. And in front of, like, I guess...
at that point, I could tell you would have been invited to our clubhouse.
Yeah, she would have been hanging with us.
A member.
Yeah,
we would have sworn her into the
I
superhero
mostly
club.
hung out with like boys around that time, so I think I had like, I don't know, but we destroyed it. And I remember there was like there's a pretty cool like a little bike ramp that was over there, and I think that's what we originally went to go over there and use. And then we were like, let's just destroy this. But I remember like this one of the boys that like lived there was one of the kids that built it. Like he rode over on his bike. And he, like, he came over and he, like, stopped and he, like, looked at the clubhouse and we just, like, stared at him in the wreckage. And he, like...
So he saw you?
Yeah, he got off his bike and, like, he looked upset but not, like, crying. But I remember he just, like, got up, walked around, surveyed the damage, then just left. Like, he looked at us and looked at it and looked at us and looked at it, like, why did they do that? And then just left.
He's trying to figure it out.
And we just, like, stared at him the whole time. And then... afterward, like, I think we had regret because we never got to go enjoy it again. But I remember just being like, we went back to like our little like friend group, which we were like, I think they brought it up, like, yeah, let's go play in that house. And we didn't want to tell them. So we were just like, okay, we're gonna stay here. Like we never told them that we destroyed it.
You know why? Because even at a young age, you knew you never go back to the crime scene. You never visit the crime scene to gloat of your your work.
It was our dark secret. But I remember like once we started destroying it, like we couldn't stop. We're like savages.
Right?
You brought it. Well, I think that's what we did with the bricks. Yeah.
It's just natural. Once the frenzy goes, it's
I'll never forget seeing her be like, ah, just like jumping and
like a berserk barbarian or something.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
We had to destroy.
So did you know those kids?
No, we didn't know them.
So it was never personal. So
no,
it was never
it was never personal. Like we never.
Wow.
Because the thing is, like, it was closer to her house, and we would see them playing in it, and then when they would leave, we would go and hang out in it. But we always felt like kind of awkward because they kept some of their stuff there, and we never got into their stuff. But we were always just kind of like, oh, we can only stay here for a while because it's their place. So then we'd always we'd never fully enjoy it because we'd be like, we gotta leave before they get back here. So like we would hang out with it, but like we never commingled with them. And whenever they were in the clubhouse, we would just wait till they left. Like we never asked to be let in. Like they probably would have let us in if we would have asked, but we
it's
never
more
tried.
fun. It's more fun kind of.
Like
You gotta really think about the mind thought of a child and how they think and how things I won't touch their stuff. I won't get into their stuff, but I'll destroy their fort.
I'll full on destroy everything they build.
Well, did you ever think like, okay, because you hung out there before you destroyed it, right?
Yeah, we did.
So I don't know. Maybe if you guys had in the back of your mind like squatter rights, like if you were there long enough, then somehow
It's ours.
Yeah, you would own the clubhouse.
We did hope because like I think they were like pretty much our age, but there was one like boy that was there was slightly older than them. Like I think he was like one of their older brothers or something. And like whenever we saw him, we were always like, well, he's probably gonna lose interest in it. Like we thought we would inherit it. Like they would just like leave.
Maybe
it.
So maybe it was little squatter rights. Like if you just hung out, they would move on, and then you guys would get the clubhouse. But then when you didn't get the clubhouse,
maybe that's why. Now that I think about it, that might have been like in the back of my mind because we were because like that summer was kind of like winding down to an end. And I think we were like hoping, and I think we were getting embittered because they were spending more and more time there, so we were spending less time. So maybe
maybe it ties into your age too. So maybe like kid logic or subliminally, we're running out of time. And if we can't own this thing, then nobody will.
Right, and it's self-justification, right? You're like, it works in my head. This is okay to do this. I'm not doing something wrong.
I always blamed hormonal rage, but I think that's more of what it was.
I just Sigmund Freud you, but you know, it was probably coming of age too. Is like this may be the last summer, right? Because I think as a kid you kind of realize that you're going to middle school or you're going into high school and you're like, this might be the last time I get to be a full-on kid. Because I do remember like there was a point like comic books and stuff that, you know, I was thinking, I gotta move on. And
you have to hide it because
you gotta
think people are gonna make fun of you.
Yeah, you gotta kind of not be as upfront about it.
It's kind of weird. You always get this slight embarrassment thing when you're running outside wearing a comic book character mask.
Yeah.
Even as a little kid, you're a little self-conscious a little bit, even though you're still going to do it.
The weird thing is, though, like when you look back and you think, it seemed like it was such a big part of your life, but it might have only been that 3 months for the summer.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that, that might have only
years and years.
Yeah, but it seemed like it was like, you know, like 3 years of your life or 4 years of your life, but maybe it was even only a month or a week or something like that.
There is a very small window in your life where you can do those things without being self-conscious about growing up.
Yeah. And
mind you, this was only 4 weeks ago that me and Art are talking about all this stuff.
Oh yeah, we still have our suits. We still go out. We're still looking for a crime busting. Yeah, but now we're trained as ninjas and fighting whatever. So we have real weapons. We could do some good. We could do some good with those skills we have now.
Training on the mean streets of Norwalk.
Back when I was trying to be a Spider-Man and not. So as kids,
I just remembered the Spider-Man thing. Oh, go ahead.
So as kids, it's normal to climb on a roof, and it's normal to jump off a roof, you know. And so I was always on a roof at our house. You got to get a ball, frisbee, or just to be up there to be cool. And then you just jump off onto the ground and you just roll. And it's fun, right? You got all this terrible speed going. So one day I'm sitting on the roof. I'm going to jump off. My mom's in the front yard, and she screams, "Stop!" Well, I already had lifted up, so I go to be a good son and obey her. So I clench down on the roof, and land, but my legs were so far off, it pendulumed me
Oh.
over.
You spun around.
Spun me around. Now my feet are hitting the ceiling of the porch, and my body's facing the concrete, and so I landed directly on the porch concrete on my head. And of course, you know, your mom's terrified, so I get up as quick as I can, and she goes, "Oh my God, are you okay? Are you okay?" And of course, as a kid, you don't want your mom to worry, so you stand up as fast as you can. You say, I'm fine, everything's great, I didn't hurt anything." And then you go to your room, and you're like, "Ow! Oh, my arm! Oh, my head! Oh!" And
Yeah.
you start rolling
It's the same
around.
thing in front of your friends. Like, you can never show the pain in front of your
Yes.
friends. You got to go and like, "Oh God, I think I
With your
broke a rib."
parents, you don't want to get in trouble too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Were you there when we made the parachutes?
Oh,
Yes,
no.
yes, yes.
Okay, so my dad worked with asbestos and stuff. So I hope these were non-asbestos bags, because we would climb in them too. But they were big industrial like bags. They were huge. They weren't like hefty bags. They were huge. We made slip and slides out of them and all kinds of stuff. Like we'd make windows in the clubhouses out of them, because they were transparent as well. So we hooked like what was it, like wire, like electrical, like, you know, like that you plug in.
Oh
what is that?
shoot! Really?
Yeah, like
Right.
yeah. And so those were like the lines that you held on to.
On the corners of it.
Yeah, the corners of, so you could use like a parachute, like the strings on the parachute or the cords. And so I don't think we even jumped off the smaller first, because we knew the bag wouldn't open up. So we knew we had to get some height. So we went to the peak of the roof to jump off.
Ooh.
So that's double the height of like the lower part.
What were you planning on landing on? Just the grass?
Just the ground.
I
But
think there was concrete right there too.
no, there was
dirt.
okay, what it was the side of the house. So the side of the house, there isn't a lot of width.
Roof, wasn't it?
No, it was the house.
Oh.
But there was a cinder block fence on one side, and then there was a what do you call those, garden? It was like
the bricks
flower
for the
bed.
garden.
Yeah, it was a
okay.
bricked in flower bed. So yeah, so you're right. I mean, the ground was like concrete because it was never watered. It was hard as a rock. So there was maybe a 10, 15 foot space.
Right.
So
right.
we had to leap off the roof, not hit that wall, and not hit the flower, because if we hit the flower bed, then we'd kill my dad's plants or whatever. So we had that little sweet spot that we had to land
Which is
in.
more dangerous than actually jumping off the roof.
Yeah,
Trying to pick a spot
but
to
can you
land?
imagine if we?
No, having your parents find out.
Oh,
that you
yeah.
did something.
Yeah, or like just rack up yourself on that fence. So yeah, we jumped off the peak of the roof. I think we all did it. And the parachute didn't open, and we just pretty much went as fast as you would if you didn't have a parachute. But the worst part about it is at least if you jump off without a parachute, you anticipate that it's going to hurt, right?
Yeah.
Right.
But
Absolutely.
but I think for us, the thing was, we, as stupid kids, thought that it was actually going to slow our descent, but it didn't. So I just remember hitting that thing.
confidence of
Yeah, my
thinking-
ankles and shins and my knees. Oh my gosh! Because I don't think we even knew, like, because when you're jumping off roofs, you kind of know to like hit and roll. Like you
Right,
don't just try to keep standing up. But I think when we leaped off, it was almost straight down, and I think we thought we were going to land straight on our feet. So the worst thing was we took the full impact
Right.
of jumping off that roof.
But you got to look at the positive points of all the stuff we did.
That we're alive.
Well, we survived it, but it helped me several times. Like, again, we're talking about high school kids chasing elementary school kids all the time. And there was a couple times where we were running up to a fence. And I'll tell you what, because of all the elite skills we had of being superheroes, I got over that fence so quick. And then you just, on the other side, you're safe. And then one of your friends that didn't do all this stuff got grabbed by these high school kids and got pummeled.
Your Spider-Man training.
And you're on the other side looking at them like, sorry, you're done.
So the obstacle course actually did train you guys.
Yeah. So that was your Spider-Man boot camp. Oh, I just remembered the Spider-Man thing. Do you remember? Because each one of us had weapons. So we had turkey basters that we would tie to our wrists, and then we would fill them up. Like we made our own like spider web juice. It was probably just muddy water. So if you got it in your eye, it would like. And
No
we probably
silly
went.
string?
Yeah. Oh no, we didn't.
Homemade.
Even if silly string existed, we wouldn't have been able to afford it. We were all
Right.
poor. We were poor, man. So I just remember going in and just all the cooking stuff my mom had, we would just mix it with water, like
Right.
yeah, and then that somehow that would be the web fluid. And so I remember getting that in my eye once. It was like some Tabasco or something.
Paprika. Just,
My eye. So yeah, we're lucky we still have our site.
Get the spicy web.
Spicy web.
And then I don't know where this device came from, but Greg had this thing that we'd plug into the wall outlet, and it was some type of transformer. It had a switch on it and a variable adjuster. And I don't know who made it. I don't know where it came from. Art probably made it because he's always doing stuff to see if we survived through it. And we would hold these metal rods, and basically we would flip it on. And basically you're just getting, it doesn't give you a single shock. It would give you pulsating shocks. So you'd be like, dum, 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 dum. And then we would just turn it up until we either couldn't let go, or we screamed, or we couldn't, or we could let go. But at the time you're getting shocked, you just clench harder.
Yeah,
and you can't let go.
Yeah.
So it was pretty fun stuff.
Macho man. Yeah. So I just remember too. We would build Legos. Like okay, Kurt and I were poor, so we didn't have Legos. Greg had Legos. Yeah. So we would build swords. We'd build weapons basically out of Legos,
hammers,
shields, and so then we would basically build these things all day. And then at the end of the day, we would like have battles. So the whole thing was whoever's weapons kind of sustained it would win.
Oh, so
Right,
Legos
right,
will snap.
Yeah, they would just fall apart. Yeah, so you try to make them as strong as you could. So they would like the single sword would end up becoming this thick.
Yes.
It would become like an 8x8 sword.
Right.
It would just be a block, like
a square block.
Yeah, that you'd swing and hit each other with. And so yeah, we would do that for hours and hours. And then we should start wrapping it up. So I'll let you tell you guys can each tell your story to wrap it up. But my wrap-up story would be this, okay? I know there's a lot of comic book people listening and things. This is the part of my childhood that seriously bums me out, okay? The Marvel Universe was 64, 65, somewhere in there. Okay, I was already of age when those books were coming out. So I could have had those books as a kid. All those early Marvel books, right? But as we mentioned, George's Market did not carry Marvel comic books. They carried all the DC books, all the National Periodical books. They carried all the Archie books. They carried, God, what was it called? You know, the Hot Stuff, the Casper books, the Baby Huey books, all those, the cartoon books. They carried those. They did not carry the Marvel books. So the Marvel books that I remember buying firsthand were later in the 70s, like the second wave of the Marvel books, but none of the first, like the building the origin of the Marvel Universe. So that always bums me out. And to this day, I'm like, why Marvel did you not have distribution at this George's Market? Oh man, can you imagine? I would, honestly speaking, I would have Amazing Fantasy? Was that Spider-Man's first?
That was Spider-Man's first appearance.
I would have the first Fantastic Four.
Didn't your mom get rid of some of your books though?
No, my mom never did. Maybe it was Greg's. Greg's mom was the type that would throw stuff away.
Right.
Because I think she threw all Greg's Mego action figures away one day too.
Oh man, those are worth money.
Yeah. So that's my my parting shot thing. It's just that I would have all those books. They probably would not be in good shape because we rolled them up and we actually loved our books to the point of them falling apart because we read them. Yeah, we were not collectors back then. But I would still have them. I know I would still have them.
Yeah, I don't even know if I could even read back then. I wasn't much of a reader, so I didn't really collect the books. Plus, I didn't have money for the books. But my biggest regret is I had so much fun destroying things. I don't have a whole lot or anything at all from my childhood except for Art, who survived my childhood.
I survived. You couldn't destroy me. I was tougher than your toys.
Right.
Wow. I'm going to have to buy you lunch now.
You outlasted the Tonka truck.
Yeah. What was Tonka's thing? Built tough or something?
Oh, they had like an elephant in the commercial standing on this thing. You cannot break
That's
it.
right. I remember that.
I think their slogan was Tonka Tough or
Tonka
something
Tough.
Tonka Tough.
This 4 or 5 year old kid destroyed Tonkas like they were made out of plastic.
Yeah. Okay, so what's yours, Taylor?
My parting shot is that One thing I feel like I missed out on is I don't have like a friend from my childhood that long that is still like a friend of mine now. The one I did have that I did all the stuff with kind of became a delinquent, but
Well, some of ours did too.
Yeah.
But I think what you guys have is pretty special. I still have some of my toys and stuff. I guess this is the last thing I'm going to part with. The first comic book I ever got, since a lot of people in the comments could relate to you guys talking about where you got your comics, the first comic I got was from a grocery store or a liquor store as well, and it was a Hulk comic. And I don't remember. I do not remember what issue it was, but I remember the story. I still remember it because I was young enough where I couldn't like read accurately, so my mom would actually read it to me and do the voices.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's very cool.
And
she did the voices.
Yeah, she did the voices.
I'd love to hear your mom's Hulk voice.
Me and my mom have like the same voice, so. But all I remember is it was about. I was disappointed because I was like, the Hulk is barely in this comic. It was about some little boy that got found in the woods by it was Doc Samson. He's the guy with the green hair, right?
Yeah.
He found him, and he was trying. They had, for some reason, they thought the kid had been hanging out with like the Hulk, like this kid had been seen with them. So he was trying to find the Hulk by questioning the kid. And there's one line in particular I remember, and that's what I've been using to try to track down this comic. And it's that the kid's like, "How do I know that you're not the Hulk?" And Doc Samson's like, "Oh, because my hair is green." He's like, "What would you say if my hair was purple?" And as my mom read it, the kid goes, "That would be radical." So I'm still trying to find that book even today.
So if you guys know, in the chat, type it in and help Taylor track down.
Would have been in the 90s.
Is that Peter David writing? Who would that have been?
90s.
Del Keown?
I think
Del
so.
Keown, Peter David, maybe?
It was around that time for sure.
Wow.
Yeah.
It
So
was probably like 95-ish.
I bet you it was Peter David and Del Keown's run, or around that time.
Didn't they do that one Batman movie in the late 80s or something? And we took one of their pictures and I made T-shirts out of them and we wore them and stood in line. I actually, during the day when I was supposed to be working, we went to the theaters together, didn't we?
Was that the first Batman?
I think it was the first Batman.
I was so eagerly awaiting that thing. Any news on that broke, I was all over it. When that Batmobile came out, that one photo of it where I think Batman's standing right next to it, I was like, oh my gosh.
If you guys can find any photos from that time, even times where you had that shirt and stuff, we should definitely do a second recap episode. If you guys are digging it, if you guys enjoyed Tales from Boomertown, definitely let us know. This was a good turnout, and thanks for the chat for joining the conversation and sharing your near childhood deaths in the backyard.
Well, there were more. I hit Kurt in the head with a hammer, with a full-on hammer.
Oh,
and he was okay. I was pounding on like the opening of the doorway of the clubhouse, pounding a nail in or something like that. And this was like probably a 2-inch nail or something. So I'm wailing on this thing, and just as I missed the nail, Kurt was walking in, and I swung because I was above him. I swung straight down on the top of his head. It would have killed anyone else.
Oh, I forgot this also. So me, I was like super mild mannered. I would do whatever anyone would tell me to do, like jump off this, stick a nail in your forehead. I would do anything. I was kind of a retarded little kid, but I was very pliable. One day we're in my house, and I don't know what we were doing. I was hiding from Art, so I had some boxes and some crates and stuff stacked on my door, and Art, trying to get to me, he busts through this door and something landed on my foot. Well, when it landed on my foot, I turned green, went Hulk, and I actually had a busted old pool table in my bedroom. So I grabbed the pool cue, and Art looked at my eyes like, Kurt's not there anymore.
His skin was literally green at this point.
The look was, there's no soul in this body. So I leap over the stuff that fell on me. Art takes off the other way, and instead of running out the front door, he runs into...
Well, the reason I didn't run out the front door is because you never went out the front door because your mom might be coming in.
You still kept that in mind?
I kept that in mind.
So he runs into my sister's room, and I'm just blankly staring at him, and I swing this pool cue on Art. It breaks on him. I break it in half on Art.
Across my abs.
And at this point, all my rage leaves me, and I calm down. I'm like,
You physically, I remember you actually just turning back into Banner. I remember that moment.
Lou Ferrigno.
And then I'm looking
Yeah.
at Art like, okay, everything's fine now. And then he gets the rage, and I'm like, oh crud! Now I'm in trouble. So I
kicked
out
the
other
shit
one.
out of you.
Yes, he did.
Pardon my French.
But that's
Okay,
that's what separates like a friendship from a best friendship.
that's what friends are for. Yeah, and okay, if you guys could see us now, okay, Kurt towers over me. You're probably like 3 feet taller than me now. But when we were kids, like I don't know, for some reason, I played football even up to high school age, and there was a moment that it happens to a lot of guys. It's in a summer period where you guys just have these growth spurts. And I don't know they sound stereotypical, like, oh, he had a growth spurt.
No, it happens.
You guys can turn into giants. And I was like, where's my growth spurt? Like Kurt just becomes
Aw.
a giant. I'm still the same size, and then the next season I'm signing up for Hell Week to practice for football, and all these guys are giants, and I'm like, what?
Like I saw them a week ago and they didn't look like this.
Yeah, so like in a 3-month period when I signed up, they were all like Kurt size, and I'm like, I can't play
seriously,
anymore.
all the way up to like 8th or 9th grade, I was the shortest kid in school almost.
I think we were probably around the same height at the time. We were probably similar.
I was under 5 foot tall in 8th grade.
Well, I was like the same height almost my whole life. Like I maxed out at a certain age, and that's it. I didn't grow another inch after that.
Yeah, I grew pretty much a foot in a year.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Well, anyways, I wouldn't mess with Kurt now because he would destroy me.
Well, the chat says they love Tales from Boomer Town.
Okay, so we're gonna boomer out loud again sometime.
Thanks everyone, and
Yeah.
sorry if we bored you to death.
No, they loved it. And if you guys want to keep sharing your tales of near childhood death traps that you have built, definitely keep sharing them in the chat. Tell us what you think of the Art and Kurt stories, and maybe we can get Kurt back here and tell some more in that edition. And if you want to see one of Art's origin story about his breaking into comics, you can watch the video before this one. Please like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications to get more content like this.
Yes, and this is an actual picture of Kurt and I. This is Kurt, and this is me. No, this isn't us. Taylor just found this photo, but it's awesome. It's exactly, and you know what? I never thought about the magazine size Marvel books. You could read those together.
Yeah, you could share it with a friend.
Yeah, share it with a friend.
And you should share this video with a friend.
Yes, share it with a friend. And if you guys don't know, we have an Indiegogo, black and white Indiegogo. It's up right now. I believe, I haven't looked at it, but my wife's looked at it on her phone. Did you see it as well this morning?
Yeah, I believe we just hit 25.
We're at 25, over 25K, which means you guys just unlocked the mini print.
Yay!
Yes, with the brilliant design, the Taylor graphic design.
And the brilliant RT Bear artwork.
Yes. All right, guys. So if you haven't checked out the Indiegogo, please go. We have a bunch of cool tiers. And like Taylor said, like, subscribe, ring the bell, and we'll keep it boomering. We'll keep it real.
Now we got a week left in the campaign, so don't wait to pledge and back and get this book, because we don't know if we're going to go into on demand yet. And we are running a contest. Well, it's not a contest. We have a goal set where we want to hit 30K.
Ooh, yeah.
We want to hit 30K by Friday the 19th. And if we can hit that, then we're going to do a giveaway where 2 backers who have pledged from the beginning to that Friday are going to get 2 pieces of original artwork, including the Greg Capullo cover. So help us get to that 30K, and we'll hook you up with some artwork.
Yeah, you guys, we're only 5K away. I know it seems like a lot, but in these things, the money's already spent, trust me. So 5K away, and then one of you lucky black and white fans will get that original piece of artwork. Well, there's 2. And the thing is, I haven't made this work available ever. And it's been 25 years, so I've held on to this stuff for 25 years. And, we're at 2540. So, yeah, so this is very rare, and this artwork will probably never be available again. So, get in there, get the get it up to 25K, and then or 30K, then we can get this artwork into your hands and into a good a black and white fan, somebody who really deserves this artwork. So it's just our way of giving back and thanking you guys for all the support and getting the word out. So thanks, guys. Have a great Sunday.